Factsverse presents Mother of two prayed for a girl and got something unexpected. Angie and Gino met, fell in love, and got married. They wanted to wait until they married to start a family, and shortly after, they had their first child, a son. They were thrilled by the new addition to their family, and soon they started talking about having a second child. They wanted their little boy to have a sibling, so they tried again. And the couple was thrilled when they found out that Angie was pregnant again. Deep down, they hoped that this time they were going to have a girl, but mostly they just wanted to have a baby who was healthy regardless. When that second son was born, Angie and Gino felt blessed. They were thrilled that their sons would grow up together and become best friends. For Angie and Gino, things were perfect. When their youngest son was just 2 years old, Angie and Gino started thinking about having another child. They both wanted a girl, and they were thinking about trying again. Raising two rambunctious boys wasn't easy, but the couple wanted all their children to be close in age, and if they were going to try for a little girl, they really needed to do that soon. When Angie found out she was pregnant again, she didn't keep it a secret that she was hoping for a little girl. The couple wanted to have a healthy baby, but if it was a healthy girl, they knew their family would be even more complete. Angie went to all of her checkups with her husband by her side. In the early weeks of her pregnancy, she and her baby bump were getting a clean bill of health. Things seemed to be going exactly as Gino and Angie planned. During one of their checkups, Angie's doctor, Sean Danishment, told her the pregnancy was considered to be high risk. Angie and Gino began to panic, thinking maybe there was something wrong with the baby. But what the doctor said next shocked them. When the doctor told Angie and Gino they were going to have triplets, they couldn't believe what they were hearing. They just wanted to have a baby, a single, healthy baby. They never imagined they would be having 3 at the same time. Right away, Angie and Gino knew how much work it would be to take care of triplets, but they were thrilled regardless. They always wanted a big family, and having triplets would make them the parents of 5 children. Best of all, the triplets were girls. For Angie and Gino, it was a dream come true. The doctor told Angie that her pregnancy was relatively rare. 2 of her babies were sharing one placenta, and the other had her own placenta. The couple was told this wasn't a significant problem, but it could have its disadvantages for the babies. According to the doctors, the size of one of the babies might be hampered, and it would not grow to be the size of the other babies she was carrying. The doctor let the couple know the other complications their babies might suffer, which had Angie and Gino worried. They just wanted to have 3 healthy baby girls. When the doctor told Angie and Gino about the issues their babies might face, they both began to worry about it. Not only could Angie go into labor early, the triplets might be born with underdeveloped lungs or suffer from brain bleeds. The babies could have suffered issues after birth as well, so Angie had to be very careful. With the help of her specialist, she hoped that she would not need to worry about any of these problems. The worries of what could happen to her daughters resulted in Angie being very stressed out. Since stress is not good for an expecting mother and her unborn babies, Angie's medical team did everything they could to ease her fears. Angie did everything she could to keep herself and her babies healthy. When she was 27 weeks pregnant, her belly was getting very large. During a doctor's appointment, she was told that she would have to be admitted to the hospital. They told her there was not enough fluid in her belly. Angie was admitted to Sharp Memorial Hospital's perinatal special care unit in San Diego. Like any expectant mother in her situation, Angie began to panic. She knew that she had to stay calm, though, and try not to stress out for the sake of the babies. She knew that could be harmful to the kids, so she tried to remain calm. Gino was right by her side, trying to keep her calm. Angie wasn't only worried about the babies in her belly, though. She was also concerned about her sons at home. She hated being away from her little boys, but, well, she didn't have a choice. She knew she had to do everything the doctors said for her to do to make sure all of her babies would be born healthy. One of the nurses who cared for Angie and her babies was Toni Hicks. She'd been working in the perinatal special care unit for quite some time, and she was used to caring for frightened, expectant mothers. She says when a woman's faced with potential complications, like Angie was, they need somebody to motivate them, to help them stay positive. And Toni understands these mothers are taken away from everything that's normal to them, and that's difficult. She says that it's even more difficult when the mother has to leave children behind at home. Toni understands that frightened, expectant mothers need somebody who will listen to them and offer a shoulder to cry on. She says there's much more to her job than just administering medication and monitoring the mothers and their babies. Tony and her coworkers also need to be there for mothers. Because Angie was pregnant with 3 babies, they each had to be monitored separately. It's not uncommon for one baby to thrive more or less than the other 2. For doctors to monitor each baby independently, they label them as Baby A, Baby B, and Baby C. In Angie's case, it was Baby B who was struggling. She wasn't getting enough fluid and was struggling because of it. During an ultrasound, the doctors found out that Baby B was also smaller than her sisters, and they believed that to be a result of the lack of fluid. Sadly, all Angie and Gino could do was just hope and pray that all their babies would be born healthy and grow up to live long and happy lives. And the waiting was a lot for the couple to deal with. Angie remained in the hospital for weeks while Tony and her doctors monitored her closely. Angie and Gino were told the longer the babies were able to stay in the womb, the better their chances would be of being born healthy. They didn't want Angie to go into labor before her daughter's lungs and other organs were fully developed. Angie's doctor told her that he was hoping that she could carry her triplets for at least 34 weeks. If she could make it until then, before going into labor, her babies would have an excellent chance for survival. Well, Angie made it to the 32-week mark, and her doctors were optimistic. The fact that she had carried the babies that long was great, but they were still shooting for 34 weeks. When Angie was 34 weeks and 1 day pregnant, she went into labor. The doctors didn't try to stop the labor at this point. They were satisfied the babies would be strong enough and healthy enough to thrive out of the womb. Many mothers deliver their babies naturally, but since Angie's pregnancy was considered high risk because she was having triplets, the doctors chose to deliver her babies via C-section. Her doctor told her that a C-section was best for her and the babies, so Angie didn't argue. She wanted to do whatever it took to make sure that her daughters would be all right. When the doctors and nurses helped to deliver all the babies, Angie didn't have a chance to hold them. Each of the babies had a team standing by who began working on them immediately. They had to make sure the babies were breathing and stabilized. Angie says that this was the scariest part of the whole pregnancy. She couldn't see what was going on, so all she could do was pray for her little girls. The doctors had to put extra effort into opening up the baby's lungs. Gino and Angie felt helpless. Once the teams had their individual babies stabilized, the triplets were transferred to the neonatal intensive care unit. There they'd get the additional care they needed. Angie and Gino already had names picked out for their 3 daughters – Camilla, Annabella, and Daniela. The babies were all stable when they got to the ICU, but there were still things that the doctors needed to check out. The babies were small and predisposed to other complications, so everything had to be checked out before the girls could get a clean bill of health. The girls had to be handled carefully, and a close eye needed to be kept on all of them. Since Angie had just had a C-section, her doctor told her that she'd need to get some rest before meeting her babies. After a few hours, it was time. Gino wheeled Angie to the neonatal unit where the babies were closely monitored. Angie took one look at her daughters and began crying tears of joy. She wanted a daughter for so long, and finally, seeing them was a moment she says she will never forget as long as she lives. She'd only been away from her daughters for a few hours, and she already ached for them. Being able to see for herself that they were all right was amazing. When Angie and Gino arrived in the ICU, little Annabella had her eyes open. She looked up at Angie and it warmed her heart. Gino held her for the first time and said that he felt an instant connection with his daughter. The couple spent time with each of their daughters individually, and they were thrilled they were all going to be okay. It took some time, but finally Angie and her 3 daughters were discharged from the hospital and they were going home. Angie couldn't wait for her 2 boys to meet their new sisters. When they got home, the house was filled with family and friends who were waiting to meet the new additions to Angie and Gino's family. When Angie got home, she needed a lot of help. Anytime a mother has a C-section, the recovery time is long. Caring for just 1 baby after a C-section, that's hard enough. Caring for 3 newborns and 2 young boys, that would be a lot for anybody. Fortunately, she had plenty of people around her who were willing to help. Angie says it seemed like right when she was finished feeding all 3 babies, it was time to start feeding them all over again. She was exhausted and slept every chance she got. Angie knew that she'd need her strength if she was going to care for 5 children. This mother of 2 prayed for a girl, and boy did she get something unexpected. 3 girls. As difficult as that pregnancy was, and as exhausting as it was for her and her daughters, Angie says she wouldn't want it any other way. She and Gino may not have planned for 5 children, but now that her babies are here, they're a blessing. Subscribe for more.